It's a pleasure and it's a great opportunity for me to, give a talk on this wonderful platform. I would like to start the session with introducing my topic. So my topic is shared cultures in between Africa and India through the ages. So as the topic suggests, through the ages. So whenever we talk about the topic or whenever we talk about the lines that this particular topic stands on, so this says through the ages. That means we have to connect, we have to link the entire topic from the very ancient times till the current, the contemporary time. So this have a very vast gap in today's time if we see. So this vast gap starts from the very starting point from where we have the proofs of of the origination of people, and in today's time where we all use this technological era. So this is something very elegant and so interesting to know that how we have joined the hands in the cultural ties, that how we got to know each other, and what from where, what are the deep rooted, the grassroots connections through which we have felt a connection among each other. So as we all know that India and Africa have shared a lot of common identities. For example, the colonial period and the racism as well as the colonization and lot of many things which are similar in both of the region. So it is very interesting to know that how they have shared their culture. So this culture, when we talk about the culture, we look at various perspectives. For example, we look at first of all, the culture stands about the religion, the language, the food, the music, and the feelings towards each other, the feeling of jealousy, love, and various other factors that contributed to this cultural phenomenon. So how we have shared this cultural connection, and is this connection have build up a lot of like have this made any kind of contribution in strengthening relations of both of the nations, and how the both of the nations will going to uh, run on in the coming time. So this is the particular in some total conclusion for this particular session. So first I would like to start with the objectives of this session. So we have like objectives are unlimited, of course. Whenever we talk about any of the topic, we comes up with lot of objectives because every mind have different thought and every mind have different suggestions about different thinkings. So whenever we talk about objectives, we always tend to learn what we will get from it. So very first, the very common objective of this is to get an historical understanding about the topic. Historical understanding is very much important because from that understanding, we'll get to know that how this thing has started. Of course, it's not the particular date or it's not the particular year or we can say particular century. Of course, such happenings take a lot of time. It could be thousand of years. It could be some days. It cannot be concluded in just a few words. So of course, history is something which cannot be. History is something that always works on predictions. So all it cannot be very much up to the proof, or it works on entire evidences. So first of all, I would like to introduce the topic in a very great manner, like in a very depth manner. So in this particular topic, as I told you, we'll talk about various histories, various ancient trade facilities that both of the regions have tend to behave to give a very beautiful environment of cooperation. And the particularly we'll focus on the Sali Coast because that is the region which have contributed to the this connections among both of the region, because Sali Coast is the region from that is a bridge between both of the regions. Then we'll go to the struggles. Then we'll go to the colonial period from where we have fostered much of the relations. Of course, it is very fascinating to know that colonial period have made the relations among both of the region very much strengthening in terms of giving opportunities to travel from one place to another in various senses. For example, in the indentured labor or in the form of skilled labor, in the form of very other perspectives. So I would like to jump to the topic that is objectives. So first of all, objective is something, as I told you, we have various objectives. So the very first objective here will talk on the historical understanding. The second will be having the cultural exchange pattern. So in this objective, we're going to learn the how we have started sharing our culture from one land to another land. So how this sharing of culture have contributed to a mutual understanding, to a mutual identity. Then we're going to learn the influence on the contemporary culture. That means, is there any still relevance of this culture that we have shared? I'm so sorry, that we have shared in our past. Then we have identity of cross-cultural influences. That means how we have impact of Indian culture over Africa and African culture over India. Then we're going to see how the promotion of cultural appreciation have done from both of the sides. Then we're going to investigate. Investigate means to find the diaspora communities that are still, managing all of these things, or that are still, trying to preserve or trying to behave in a manner that takes our focus to learn these things more in depth. So this is the sum total learning we're going to have at the end of the session. So as the objectives we have discussed, so first of all, we're going to see the different aspects of historical understanding. So different aspects. So the historical understanding is something which we see from the very starting point, from where we have the proofs, and we end up to the point from where we have the proofs of contemporary times. So in this particular topic, we see from the trade perspective, because trade is something that have meant to connect the whole world. So how trade have made the connections from India to Africa and from Africa to India. In the ancient trade routes, we see how the connection of Asia and Africa have facilitated the goods, the ideas, and how it have played the crucial role in building up roots from building up roots not only in Africa but to entire to entire structure, that is to entire space that is way around Africa. So if we see in the map, we see that there are a lot of lines that are getting from one place to another. Like we see there are a lot of lines that are connecting the route line. So these route lines are clearly mentioned. Two things if we see, there are two arrows that are suggesting. If you will zoom out these, so there are two arrows which clearly suggest that November to February the winds flows from north to south. So, and if we say from April to this November, we see that winds flow from south to north. So, what is the significance of these winds that flow? What is the geographical significance, and how we see this as an joining? How we see this as an point of connection? So, see, when we see these winds flow from south to north and north to south, so people used to travel because it made them travel very easily. It made the ship travel easily from one place to another. So that's how people have started traveling. Like people from India started traveling from the month of this February, sorry, from the month of this November to February, the this winter, and they go back to their land from the month of April to November. So this clearly mentioned there is a difference of 1 year. So this 1 year stands with a lot of connectivity because people used to live their entire 6 month duration. And in the 6 month duration, of course, there would be some kind of exchange of flows, ideas, goods. There is like, of course, at the time, it's not just the goods, the flows and ideas. There are a lot of things that have started sharing. Like people used to start getting married, and so marriage is a very big perspective if we see to this cultural perspective, because marriage have turned into a connection, a bondage of various families, a bondage of different communities among each other. So this bondage is something very deep rooted, and that cannot be neglected, and that have the roots at a very great path. So this is all about this ancient trade route. Then I would like to turn on the spice trade route. So spice trade route is, of course, everybody know that pepper is the king of spices, and pepper have tend to join these two regions in a very great level, because pepper is something that was used in an entire region of Europe and some part of North Africa. So of course, pepper was so precious at the time, and it was so geographical constrained spice that was only available in India, like in abundance. So that's the point that Europe has started traveling in search of this pepper, and they somehow found the route to jump to India, and that the route which they found, that was the only part to the Africa. So that's how, when they found the route to this India, so this have made the travel of people. This have made the this spice trade very convenient, because Europe technology have made a convenience to travel from one place to another. That's how various traders from India in terms of spice, they have traveled from one place to another, and that is specifically to Africa. That's how we have joined um, land of Africa, and we spread to all of the part of Africa in the same manner. And in the same manner, we have various traces from the ancient times that the Channu Daro, that is a site of India, or that is a site of India, and it is the smallest site of Harappan. So Channu Daro, from where there we found the pearl. We have found this pearl millet, that is somehow agricultural product of Africa only. So this clearly suggests that people used to travel and they used to give this agricultural practices. This used to give these ideas about it. So this flow of idea is not only about the spices, but when they travel to you, specifically in terms of spice, they used to give various ideas about it, and that's how this have contributed to a lot of exchanges. So the third slide is here. We're going to jump on the third slide. That is our language as well as the architectural structure. So what is language and architectural structure? So language is something, of course, if we look to India, we see that whole of the nation have different language. Like if we see Jammu Kashmir and South India, we have a variety of changes in the language and changes in the words that is completely different. We're not able to identify the language in just one go. We need to understand, we need to learn. So that's how. What is the reason behind that? If we travel from one place to another, the pronunciation, the capability of understanding the words. So that's how we have seen a lot of words that have merged from this India, and we see a lot of words that are used in Africa. And in the same manner, we see that there are a lot of words that were African and that are used in India. So this culmination of language is clearly the great evidence about cultural connection, that of course people have accepted this change, and that's how they have proceeded to accept it, and they have used these terms in their daily language usage. So this language and architectural carving is something that cannot be identified in just one go. That takes a lot of change, a change that have contributed to give this idea. Like this is something that have made an idea of that have blended, that took years to get blend. So language is something that of course takes time to get blend, and in the same way architecture is something that takes a lot of time to get blend. So I would like to jump on the next slide. So this architectural influence. So first of all, there are a lot of examples. So what is architecture? So architecture is something, uh, a design of any monument, of any building, or it could be any like if we see it in a very basic idea, that is something no, a monument or any kind of building, any kind of infrastructure. So how architecture is designed in this cultural influence. So architecture is something that gives us an idea, the technology used at the time, the ideas to carve the stones, the ideas to carve the wooden paintings and the wall paintings, and ideas to stand the wall and to make the pillar stand. So of course we see that there are a lot of Indian designs that are carved in this African architectural buildings. And in the same way, if we jump to India, we see that a lot of African styles that we see in the Indian buildings. So first of all, what are these buildings? What are the specific buildings? So I have also mentioned these buildings in the PPT. The first building is Juma Masjid, that is in South Africa. And the second building is the Old Fort, that is in Tanzania. So these are the buildings that are completely based on Indian architectural system. So what is this Indian architectural system? If we see Indian architectural system have a dome-shaped buildings. That means buildings that have an erected dome-shaped upper body of the building. So this dome shape clearly gives idea that this is taken from India. And if we see this old fort, we see the buildings, the entire wall is covered with lot of windows. So this window idea is also from India. And if we see the upper carving of this wall is in some pattern. So this pattern is also taken from India. So these are the patterns that were so prevalent at the time that they were completely, copied in there. So this is the Jali design, which is in India in various mosques and various like in various mosques we see and in various monuments we see these jalis. So what is this jali? So jali is an African pattern that we see in Indian monuments. And there is one fascinating fact that Taj Mahal, which have the jali all over its entire building. So Taj Mahal jali is also inspired from this African design that is called as the Great Jali design. So this Jali design is something clearly identifies the African pattern of architecture. And if we go to there is little story of Malik. Before jumping to the Sahali culture, I would like to conclude the story of Malik. So that is the uh, Malik is, Malik, of course, we see he is in great, he was a great king and he was from Africa itself and he came to India in form of slave and later on he became an king with a great opportunity of, ruling the people and he was contemporary to he was parallel to this Mughal empire and he managed to run entire of his empire with a very strong identity. So this clearly identifies the idea that there was flow of people on an abundance rate. And if we see, like if we jump to Africa, we have a lot of Indians who have who have ruled the land of Africa, especially we talk about the Sohali coast. We see a lot of Indians who have ruled for 4 5 years in a very contingency manner. So next term is Sohali culture. So how Sohali have meant to be the core idea, the core bridge to join these both the region. So basically, Sohali is a region that is the eastern west part of a southeastern part of entire Africa, and that is a coast which is the group of which is a group of four nations, and this entire coast is completely comprised of international ports nowadays. And at the time, this was the point from where we see that people have started, people from India have made this a gateway to enter into Africa. So the Sohali coast have clearly gives the glimpses of people of India that have traveled to Africa. And this geographical, as I told you in the previous slides, that geographical somehow connections like the wind that flow from south to north and north to south have made easy for people to travel from one place to another. So people from India usually they came to Sohali coast, and that is the doorway for them to jump into Africa. And in the same manner, African people used to travel to India through the doorway of the Sohali coast, and they used to travel a lot, and they used to stop themselves at Gujarat and Karnataka. So Gujarat and Karnataka is the two prominent states we see the population of Africans in abundance. So Sohali coast is somehow Sohali is home to a lot of people like 2,30,000, nearly 2,30,000 people of India. So that is just only Sohali coast. So in sum total, there are 27 lakh, near around 27 lakh Indians that are residing all over the Africa. So this number of population is very much and it's not sure, like it's not very much we can say up to the mark, but it is a rough idea that have taken that nearly 27 lakh Indians are living there. So this residing of Indians is not just the manner of some few centuries. Of course we have the connection from the very past times. That is the reason we are living there. So the same, if we compare the Africans to India, the same of the logic is applied to them. Then we have the next slide, that is the next perspective. So this is the map of the Sohali coast. That means if you see this yellow portion in the east part of Africa. So these are the four nations: Mogadishu, Mombasa, Zanzibar, and Kilwa. And some part of this Mozambique also are the part of the Sohali coast. So this was a part from where people used to travel from one place to another. That means it is a gateway and doorway for entering as well as exit to both of the identities. Then we have the religious influence. So what is this religious influence? So of course we see that India at the time was India at the time was completely under the shadow. If we see from the ancient times, India was under the shadow of this Hinduism. And if we see the medieval times, India was somehow it was somehow diverse into two religions, that is Muslim and another is Hindu. So these two, religions have a great impact over African population. Like the African population, if you see the in terms of Indians who are residing in Africa. So this religion, that means Hindus and Muslims, that were all diverse in a population all over the India. So in the medieval times, we see that the population have a great religious influence among each other in terms of getting identities in terms of cultural area. Um, uh, for example, we see that Mughals at the time have give their 100% to made the entire whole of the India to get converted into Muslim. In the same way, whole of the at the time the ports, whole of the traders were completely identified as a Muslim identity. So that is the reason. If we jump to this Sali Coast, that was the entering pass or the entering port, that was all, completely comprised of this Muslim identities, because at that time only Muslims, who are the people were being Muslims, and they will be allowed to trade. So this is something very interesting to know, that only Muslims, if somebody have the Muslim identities, and he or she will be allowed to do the trade inside or outside both of the regions. So this Muslim influence, this religion have made a lot of irony, and that is the reason we see entire Somali coast is now they used to preach this Islam. So this is the very strong point that completely proves the reason behind this particular area. And Africa also, like most of the nations of Africa also preach Islam, and India as well as this Omani Empire is the great is a great source to transfer. Like the credit will completely goes to them because they have transferred this a religion to this area. Then we have that is colonial period. So colonial period is, if we see in India, it is started from this battle of Plassey, battle of Buxar. This is starting point from we see that colonial period have started in India. In the same manner, all of the Africa was also colonized at that time. So how the colonization helped us? Or there are two statements that come around this: have the colonization period helped us, or it have made a loss to both of the regions. So of course there's answer to both of the reasons, like both of the questions. But if we see at the conclusion, we see that this colonial period have in actual made the connections very strong. How? So the reason behind it, first of all, the transfer of people in terms of indentured labor, the transfer of people in terms of skilled labor, the transfer of people, like the transfer of people from one area to another area. And this transfer of people have made the transfer of ideas, the made the transfer of various, like have made the transfer of various families from one place to another. So this transfer have led to the connections, have led to the settlement of people at a very great level. And from that time, we see a lot of people have settled there and they're happy at that area. We see a lot of people, like there is one businessman who is Jagjeevan, who is termed as Jagjeevan, and he's a great businessman. Of course, now he's not alive, but his family is still residing there, and he's a great businessman as well as he's a great politician there. And in India also we have various, in India also we have various these people, businessmen who are from Africa. So this colonial period has made the transfer of people very easily in terms of technology, because of course they got a lot of cameras and various advancement of various advancement of people in terms of various other fields. So this colonial period, so this is the this is the entire fact that I have told, that colonial period have profound of far-reaching effects of shaping the societies in a very significant way, like as I told in the this like the forced labor, the skilled labor, the indentured labor, the basic. There are 2 to 3 days that have clearly identifies this. So there was a time frame that is called 1833. So this 1833 was the time when we see there was the transfer of 60. Sorry, there was the transfer of 33,000 Indians to Uganda. So this is just one example that predicts this. So there are a lot of examples about it, and of course we cannot talk about this in this session because the time is limited. But there are a lot of examples that clearly predict that people used to transfer with their families and with their friends, and they used to settle there. So the settlement, of course, have made the combination of culture and made the combination of clear identities as well as various other factors behind it. Okay, so the diaspora community. So what is this diaspora? So diaspora means the people of a particular country residing in the another country. So that is from this diaspora. So we have the diaspora in India. We have the African diaspora and we have the Indian diaspora. So these diasporas used to travel to their native nations in a very frequent manner. And when they used to travel, they used to, tell stories. They used to give the idea about their basic lifestyles and how they are, managing, or if they are getting any kind of sense in today's time, or they are able to connect themselves, or they are able to, feel the connection among themselves. So this diaspora community is so strong, and it is something that helps us to manage, or that helps us to get idea about various predictions. So this diaspora community, like this diaspora community is a linking point in today's time that gives us gives various answers, and this have given the various this have given various answers of these identities that have the mutual understanding. For example, if we see that various diaspora community celebrates Diwali there. So there is a festival that is Durban Diwali festival that is celebrated in South Africa. So this clearly mentioned that there are a lot of Indian festivals that are celebrated there. And if we see in the very, combinative culture, we see that there is a festival that is called Malundi. So this festival is celebrated by both of the people, that is African as well as Indians who are residing in Africa. And lot of Indian rituals are concerned in that particular festival. And if we see that pulao, and pulao is a food that is most likened by African people. So of course there is a lot of flow of people, and that's how they used to, they used to get idea, or they used to get the taste, and that's how they used to learn the taste about it. And after that, we see that there is a attire that is called kanga and kanzu. So kanga and kanzu are the two kind of attire. So kanga is an attire that is worn on Indian, sorry, that is worn on Indian turban. Like that is an attire that is worn like an Indian turban, and that is very much popular in African people. And kanzo in a tie that is worn by Indian female, and that is also very much popular in Africa. And if we see there is a music also that gives the idea of combination of both Indian music taste as well as African music taste. That is a tarab. So tarab is a music that gives the combination of tarab is a music that is very much popular in Africa, that have the sense of Indian music, like the taste of Indian music, as well as the combination of African music. So these all are the connecting chain that gives the idea that have culture, have influenced the people, have influenced the combination of idea of friendship and the love, prosperity, harmony. So this is the demographic chart of population that are Africans living in India. So that is 2,50,000 year around, and mostly they are inhabited in Gujarat and Karnataka. And if we see this Indians living in Africa, that is 27 lakh and then 10,645. And the most population of Indians residing in Africa, that is in South Africa. So these communities, they are both in today's time. If we look at the surveys, they are happy in their manner, and of course there are a lot of challenges they are facing in today's times, but they are able to cope up with it because both of the countries, both of the governments are trying to have the bilateral ties and friendship ties, as well as various other agreements that they are signing to help each other and help the diaspora communities. So this is the cultural diversity. So of course it is a diffusion, and it cannot be connected in just few points. There are a lot of many other things which might be missed in the slide or PPT. And of course there could be a lot of points that are not able to grasp here, but of course culture takes a lot of years, maybe centuries to contribute itself to get an identity. So this cultural diversity, this cultural identity is very much prosperous and so preserving in nature that people, the diaspora communities are giving us the idea how they are preserving or how they are managing, or how in this time, in this digitalized world, we are still having a connection with each other. So these are some of the festivals that are celebrated in this globalized world. That is Kenya Indian Festival and Nairobi Indian Festival, that is again celebrated in Kenya. Then we have the Siachen Indian Day, that is celebrated in Siachen. Then we have the Mauritius Indian Heritage Festival. So these festivals clearly mention that Indian people are enjoying their identity there and they are happily living. Of course, there would be some challenges, but over them challenges, if we overcome these challenges, we see that this identity have made a lot of friendship among each other. So this is the diversity, and this is the whole concept. And if we see like the very last perspective, that is in the modern contemporary times, there are a lot of examples, there are a lot of mutual understandings, bilateral ties that have clearly contributed that both the sides, the government are trying to endure these fascinating relations that we share from ancient times, and that could not be connected in just like that, could not be simply written down in just one paper. Of course, there are a lot of from very 1947 till 2023. Of course, that starts with the NAM, because NAM have one of the co-founder from this Africa, and this co-founder, like this NAM, this origination of NAM until today's time, we have various understandings, mutual cooperation, bilateral gatherings, and various agreements and various transfer of ministers and lot of signatures that are done to endure and strengthen the relationships among each other. So of course there are a lot of news that comes around like after every week or after every month that this or that have signed among both of the governments or various university ties there. For example, the latest news is there that IIT Madras have signed a bilateral agreement with this Zanzibar, and there is a new IIT will be getting open there, and that is something very happy or the proud moment for us, because we have an IIT that is outside India. And of course, lot of people would take it in a very shocking way that how it would be possible, but that was an MOU that was signed in July. So this is just one example. We have various such examples there, and yeah. So thank you so much, and that's all about today's session. So I hope this was so engaging, and you all have got a lot of learning. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you so much all of the attendees here. I'm so happy that you have joined me, and you have tried to grasp a new knowledge. So I'm so sorry for somewhere I have missed some point, or I am not able to make something like up to the mark. So I hope this is very clear, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Komal, and I seriously appreciate your confidence. You have spoken for about 35 plus minutes, and it was really a
Oh my.
power packed presentation. So, we have some questions from our inquisitive listeners,
Okay.
so we would be taking them one by one. The first question is from Ravi Bishnoi, and he's asking that, the essence of most cultural elements in India and Africa is a sense based traditional trends. But recently seen that the growing capitalism has influenced the cultural trend in a lot of ways. So, what's your opinion on this? And according to you, what could be the specific areas where India and Africa can together promote their cultural trends?
Okay, so see, of course, we have trends of change from the ancient times to this contemporary times, and this change is very common and it's very natural, to be honest. So this change, if we see, this change have both of the perspective, that means pros as well as the cons. So of course, this digitalization have made our mind that whenever we see, whenever we look, or whenever we hear this Africa, we take our one step back, like in any sense. Of course it's very logical, and we see that that is very much backward, and we have this general notion in our population. But nowadays, as we all wonders that we have various departments of this African studies. Even I wonder that I had a beautiful department of African studies in our university. So this is something that is trying to endure the ideas, endure the relationship, and to change the notion that we all do have in a very common identity about the Africans. So this and various agreements that our government nowadays trying to sign, as well as trying to popularize, advertise. For example, this G20 have made a lot of contribution to get in strengthening ideas with this entire continent. So of course it will take time, but we should appreciate the small movements at our own level, and that's how it will culminate the whole of the empire of cultural beautiness.
Okay. And the next question we have is from Saurabh Singh. He is asking, how are Indian and African cultures interacting and influencing each other in the 21st century? How, the past connections are affecting the foreign relations today? So
Okay,
what's
so
your
of course, yeah. So 21st century is the digitalized century. Everybody knows it, and this digitalization have made a lot of conveniency, accessibility, as well as somehow it is very challenging. So challenging in terms of, as I told you in the previous answer also, that whenever we talk about this Africa, the very first idea we see that Africa. Why Africa? Why will talk? Why would why? What is the logic of talking about it? So this cultural, this 21st century, of course, it's very challenging because it's a very it is a century where we see where we see the technological advancement at a very great level, at a very great path. So, and especially after this first decade, we see that digitalization is now accessible to everybody. So this accessibility have changed the ideas, have open up the various employment activities and various educational ties, education forums, and various other fields that have opened the ways to both of the nations to join hand in hand, as well as to join how to culminate the idea of friendship. Of course, again, it is very slow process, but at one time, maybe after the end of half of the century, we might be having some great results out of it. And of course, Indian Africa is something that whole of the world is looking out for the marketing process and for this employment process, and they are trying to invest in these regions because these regions are so much productive, and they have a lot of minds, lot of ideas, and everything, energy. Basically, this energy, source of energy is if these both of the region will tie together in a very strong way, so of course it will like to strengthen them. So of course it will take time, but one day definitely we will.